Hope everyone enjoyed their 2 snow days. I will not be able to stay after school on Monday, so I'm making this video for Othello scenes 1 and 2 from Act 2. So we're going to go ahead and get started on the reading. It might sound a little bit awkward since I'm reading for all the parts, but get over that. So here we go. Act 2, Scene 1, enter Montano and 2 gentlemen. Montano is the governor of Cyprus, so you just have to understand that we skip scenes here. We're not in Verona anymore. We are now definitely in Cyprus. So Montano begins. What from the cape can you discern at sea? Nothing at all. It is a high-wrought flood. I cannot twixt the heaven and the main to scry a sail. So they're standing out on the shoreline and they're looking at the sea at this point, and he's saying that there's such a flood, there's such a storm at sea that he can't tell the difference between the heavens and how high the ocean waters are at that point. So it's pretty rocky at sea is what you're gathering. Methinks the wind hath spoke aloud at land, a fuller blast ne'er shook our battlements. If it hath ruffianed so upon the sea, what ribs of oak when mountains melt on them can hold the mortise? What shall we hear of this? So you notice in the last 2 lines that Montano speaks when he says what ribs of oak, he's comparing the oak boards of the bottom of a ship to that of ribs, so we get some personification, we get some metaphor here. And he's saying that pretty much no ship could be held together, so they're really worried about, of course, Othello's ship making it there, okay, and the others. A segregation of the Turkish fleet, for do but stand upon the foaming shore, the chidden billow seems to pelt the clouds, the wind-shaken surge with high and monstrous mane seems to cast water on the burning bear, and quench the guards of the ever-fixed pole. I never did like the molestation view on the enchafed flood. There's a lot of footnotes there, so I'll give you a second. I'll check my footnotes, you check yours. Okay, so when you check the footnotes, you're pretty much gathering that he's making all these comparisons and giving you extra imagery of how high the sea waters are. For example, when he talks about the monstrous mane of the water seeming to cast water on the burning bear, so it's as high up as to reach the constellations in the sky, etc., etc., etc. We also have some personification there at the end. If that the Turkish fleet be not and sheltered and embayed, they are drowned. It is impossible to bear it out. So you check the footnotes and you understand that Montano is pretty much saying that there's no way that the Turkish fleet could have survived. Their ships have either been pulled apart or they're drowned, but no one could make it through the flood that's out there at this point. A third gentleman enters onto the scene. News, lads, our wars are done. The desperate tempest hath so banged the Turks that their designment halts. A noble ship of Venice hath seen a grievous wreck and sufferance on most part of their fleet. So you get the idea that this is good news, of course, because they say that the wars are done. When they talk about a tempest, you know that the tempest just means a severe storm out there on the sea. There's some footnotes there, so I'll give you a second to check the rest of what the third gentleman is bringing news of specifically. Okay, so it's just talking about the Venice ship that's actually seen or has borne witness to the fact that the Turkish fleet has been destroyed. How is this true? The ship is here put in. Avernisa, Michael Cassio, lieutenant to the warlike Moor Othello, is come on shore, the Moor himself at sea, and is in full commission here for Cyprus. So you're going to notice as we go through the scene that there are 3 different ships that are being waited on at this point. So we have Michael Cassio and his crew. Othello, as you see here, is on a different ship with his crew. They have not arrived yet, just Michael Cassio's ship. And then there's going to be another ship that has Iago, Rodrigo. It has the wives Emilia and Desdemona on that ship, and they are not there, of course, yet. Michael Cassio's ship is the first one to arrive. I am glad on't, 'tis a worthy governor. But this same Cassio, though he speak of comfort touching the Turkish loss, yet he looks sadly and prays the Moor be safe, for they were parted with foul and violent tempest. So the third gentleman brings the idea that even though Cassio is excited that the Turkish fleet has been destroyed, he's happy to be safe and be there on Cyprus. He's upset for some reason. So you think on yourself, why is he upset at this point? What is he worried about? Take a look back at the lines. And you notice that it says that he prays that the Moor be safe, so he's of course worried about Othello arriving there safely. Pray heaven he be, for like a full soldier, let's to the seaside ho, as well to see the vessel that's come in, as to throw out our eyes for brave Othello, even till we make the main and the aerial blue an indistinct regard. So Montano says that they need to go down by the shoreline even closer so that they can watch out for the brave Othello. There's some footnotes there, so I'll give you a second to check. Okay, at this point, you also want to be marking the fact that Montano mentions heaven, so I'm sure that you're referencing or marking light and dark imagery at this point. Also, when the third gentleman speaks and he talks what Cassio is worried about, he's worried about Othello arriving safely, and then Montano again reiterates that fact that he says he prays to heaven that Othello would be safe. It characterizes the type of relationship that Montano and Cassio both have with Othello, so this will not be the first time that Othello is meeting with Montano. They are old friends at this point and know each other. Come, let's do so, for every minute is expectancy of more arrivants. Cassio enters onto the scene, so he's gone off his ship, and says, thanks you the valiant of this warlike isle, that so approve the Moor. Oh, let the heavens give him defense against the elements, for I have lost him on a dangerous sea. So he's just repeating that he's worried about Othello. He mentions heaven. We have the mention of valiant again, so you want to mark both of those things. Is he well shipped? His bark is stoutly timbered, and his pilot a very expert and approved allowance. Therefore my hopes not surfeited to death stand in bold cure. So we see what Cassio feels about the future of Othello. You check the footnotes. Notice in footnote 51 it says that his reputation has been tested. Not his reputation in general, but his reputation of a man commanding ships at sea, fighting, and of course his reputation is a good one. We've talked about how you need to be marking things that are referencing reputation because that's a pretty important motif that's seen throughout Othello. So go ahead and mark that if you did not already. Then you see in the stage direction, there's a cry from within, a sail, a sail, a sail. So there's another ship coming onto the scene. What noise? The town is empty. On the brow of the sea stand ranks of people, and they cry, a sail. My hopes do shape him for the governor. There's a shot from within, and the second gentleman says they do discharge their shot of courtesy. You want to check the footnote on that. Says fire a salute in token of respect and courtesy. You might think the opposite, but really when a shot was fired, when a ship was coming close to land, that was their way of saying that I'm not an enemy. They're not firing the shot at the land. They're just letting them know, hey, we're here and we're friendly, so it's not like we're trying to sneak on the land itself. Our friends at least, I pray you, sir, go forth and give us truth who 'tis that is arrived. Cassio mentions truth, so you want to go ahead and mark that because obviously, there's a lot of deception and lying going on already. The second gentleman says, I shall, and he exits off the scene. But good lieutenant, is your general wived? So he wants to know if Othello is married at this point. Most fortunately, he hath achieved a maid that paragons description and wild fame, one that excels the quirks of blazoning pens, and in the essential vesture of creation does tire the engineer. Go ahead and check the footnotes to see what Cassio is saying about Desdemona and how he feels about her. Okay, so after you check the footnotes, you see that Cassio really does like Desdemona. He says that she's beyond all compare. He thinks that she's beautiful, and really any attempt to describe how beautiful she is or any attempt to try and compare her to something else really isn't fitting enough for her. A second gentleman enters onto the scene, and Cassio says, how now? Who has put in? Which just means who has come into harbor at this point. 'Tis one Iago, ancient to the general. So here's the second ship that's arrived. So we're going to have Iago, Rodrigo in disguise, and we have both of the wives, Desdemona and Emilia, arriving on the scene.